Himalayan blackberry normally stays along waterways, along watersheds, definitely in temperate zones. The Himalayan blackberry is like an alien species to many people of the globe due to its confusing origin. Because of its name, many people think it comes from Nepal, but it doesn't. The plant is native to Armenia and was first introduced to Germany in 1835. It is stated that the Himalayan blackberry was first introduced to America from Europe in the late 1800s as a cultivated crop. But other stories state that a man named Luther Burbank, an American botanist, horticulturalist, and pioneer in agricultural science, discovered this plant in a catalog of unidentified seed exchange in India. Hence the name Himalayan blackberry. He brought it back with him to America in 1885, and he grew it in his backyard. He noticed that the plant grew fast and berries it produced were larger and sweeter than most common other blackberries in America, making it more attractive species for both domestic and commercial fruit production. The Himalayan blackberry escaped from cultivation and has become an invasive non-native species in most of the temperate world. Because it is so hard to contain, it quickly got out of control, with birds and other animals eating the berries and with spreading the seeds. From this, the plant eventually spread to Pacific Northwest, where it is now widespread. It can also be found in Australia and New Zealand. It's considered a noxious weed in the Pacific Northwest, and it is rapidly occupies disturbed areas such as lowland areas and streamside areas, as you can see right here. It is very hard to eradicate. Once established, it tends to outcompete with native vegetation. All in all, many people in the Pacific Northwest developed a love-hate relationship with the plant. Many parks in Seattle, such as Discovery Park, encourage people to eat the berries so that small animals do not spread the seeds. Some farmers use it as barriers for their livestock. The Himalayan blackberry is even used as a riparian factor and planted for erosion in the central Washington area. People also tame the plant to create a shaded walkways in their garden. Most importantly, the berries can be used to make delicious pie.
Robust perennial sprawling, more or less evergreen shrub, Rubus urmanicus, aka Himalayan blackberries, is a species of rubus. Rubus is a genus comprised raspberries, blackberries, and dewberries in the rose family, Rosaceae. Rose family, Rosaceae, is in the order of roseales under the class of Magnoliopsida. Magnoliopsida is a class in which seed plants produce an embryo with dicotyledons and net-veined leaves under the division of flowering plants, Magnoliophyta.
So there's three ways to manage the Himalayan blackberry. One of the ways is mechanically, so physically removing the plant. As you can see over here, there's a big pile of removed blackberry along with other species also. Another way to manage the Himalayan blackberry is through chemicals. So people will use Roundup and other herbicides to manage the plant. Another way to manage the Himalayan blackberry is through changing its ecology. So by either burning, either grazing by animals like sheep and goats. And also they're looking into the introduction of herbicides, insects that would actually eat the plant. So those are the three ways that the Himalayan blackberry is managed. Go. Go.
So I'm standing here with the Himalayan blackberry, which is part of the Rubus family and came here around 1800 or so it didn't have time to really develop in place with native peoples here, so the ethnobotany isn't quite so present. However, there are a number of Rubus species that are found here, and they seem to have very similar medicinal purposes, whether we're talking about thimbleberry, salmonberry, dewberry, or our native trailing blackberry. They all seem to have pretty similar properties, which are they're astringent, so they're able to use them for their wounds. They're also good for tummy issues, especially in small children, and they're used for diarrhea medicine. So we also found out that you can make tea with the stalk and the stems. You can eat the fruit, which I can't seem to find any right now because it's kind of out of season, but you want to be careful with the leaves because they say that if you eat too many of the leaves, it's actually toxic. So if you're gonna eat the leaves, you wanna let them dry out first. Otherwise, you might make yourself sick. What native peoples did do here when the blackberry came is they recognized it as a similar species to the ones that were already present, and they began to eat them just like many people do today. All over the world, Himalayan blackberry is one of the most foraged plants of all time. Everybody knows what it is and is able to go out and pick some and make all kinds of good stuff. So we have pies, jams, syrups, and preserves that are usually made with the blackberry. And yeah, that's it.
I'm Devin Pena, professor of anthropology, American ethnic studies, and environmental studies at the University of Washington. What do I know about Himalayan blackberry? First thing that comes to mind is that it's it's not a native species. It came here as an ornamental along with English ivy, and both of these species have completely displaced native plants, both in our public and private lands, across much of the Puget Sound bioregion. I also know that it's very good. People harvest it, they forage for it. You see joggers and cyclists foraging for it. And I've also noticed that you see immigrants foraging for it. And we have cooked it, canned it, and all the rest. Makes really good jam, makes good jelly, and in ice cream it's quite good. There was one concern that I had some years ago when I noticed that in an effort to manage and confine this invasive species, or this introduced species as I prefer to say, the city was spraying herbicide on them. And then the immigrants, many of them Vietnamese and other Asian immigrants, were coming in after the spraying and eating the berries. So I wrote a letter to the city of Seattle saying, do you know that immigrants are foraging for this stuff after you spray it, even though you have a sign that says it's been sprayed, you should leave it alone. But they don't read English. So I believe the city began introducing multilingual signs, which I have seen at some parks. But better than that, I believe they stopped using herbicide altogether. And now they're using more natural methods to control it. Finally, I'd say, good luck. It's here to stay. There's very little we can do to get rid of some of these introduced varieties. I think at best we can try to manage some wild areas that are restored to native species, but I doubt very much that we could get rid of the blackberry in urban environments.